paradox that when you work together with people, when you work in an open innovation project or something, there will always be secrets that you need to share. So you always have, like in a marriage or something, you have this conflict between telling everything and keeping some secrets and sharing and what should I not share and so on. So that's simply the background for why I wanted to talk about intellectual property. But the things that we actually work on with companies, that's more like, first of all, how can a company be sure that they actually own the things that they are developing? How can you get ownership and be sure about that you own it? Because unless you own something, you can't share it. It sounds, perhaps you haven't thought about it, but if you don't own it, then you don't share it if you give it away. Then you're just pointing to some common resource and say, hey, we can all use this open source thing. But it's only if you own it and you transfer it, for instance, into open source, or you license it to somebody or something, that you actually share it. So sharing means that you have to own something first. And that's why we are sort of preoccupied about how can a company, how can an organization, how can an inventor know that they actually own it. And then we talk about risk and risk management around intellectual property. And the buzzword is usually freedom to operate, because that's your biggest fear. You are spending thousands of hours and lots of resources on developing something, and then suddenly you discover that somebody else has a patent on it. So you don't really own what you thought you owned because you developed it. And that's sort of critical to understand whether that is a risk or not. And then we work about understanding the value of that. But blockchain technologies and all the new companies and everything that's happening is moving so fast to sort of sit down and now start to think about the value is very difficult. But it's obviously huge since all of you guys are here. Now, what types of ownership do we have to things that we develop using blockchain technology? And first of all, there's copyright. So I'm going to talk about these things. I'm going to talk about the copyright, which is to the code itself, and of course the open source licenses and all those kind of things. And then we have trademarks, like the right to the names. For instance, I wrote up to the names that include blockchain. But if you heard the talk to Chris Skinner earlier today, he talked about how the banks and their brands, that's what people actually trust. I think most consumers, for instance, won't care about whether there's Ethereum or something else down there. They trust their bank. Businesses, they will trust IBM or the Linux Foundation or something and know that that is good. So perhaps blockchain is not so important, but trademarks do play a role around all emerging technologies or emerging platforms like this. And then there's, of course, patents. Are there patents there? And yes, as you will see and probably heard, there are lots of patents, but do they matter and how? And I will talk a little bit about that. So copyright, just in 1 minute. I mean, copyright is a right that you get for the actual code or for artwork. And you just get it. It's not something you have to register. You can register it in the US, and there are different things around that, but basically you just get the copyright. And so it's originally, when you write code, it's owned by the programmer or by the employer of the programmer. Usually it's actually owned by the employer of the programmer. But lots of you programmers, if there are anyone here, are not really employed, or they are employed several places, and that creates issues all the time that you have to look into. And then you submit this, for instance, into some kind of project on GitHub or something, and then you transfer the rights. You usually sign some kind of paper or something that says, I've transferred the right under some open source licenses. And then there are lots and lots of different types of licenses, so you have to sort of understand what you're doing. And then there's a project that develops it, or it could be IBM or the Linux Foundation or something, and they will give the user of the software a license. So Copyright gives you a worldwide automatic protection of the code exactly as it is written. So this is, for instance, what happens. I really like the title there. IBM open sources its blockchain code, the non-crazy part of Bitcoin. So, so this is about the non-crazy part of Bitcoin. But if you see here, they talk about the Hyperledger project, and they talk about dump the Apache 2.0 license source into GitHub. Now, I don't know how familiar with these different types of licenses, but what's called the Apache 2.0 license, it's a very open and very good license. It's often used for open source project, and it ensures that the code can be used in many settings by anyone. The Apache license is also so that anyone that contributes code into it under this license will also have to license their patents. And then there are lots of interesting things around it. But basically it means that if you use the Apache 2.0 licensed open source platform from Hyperledger, you can be sure that IBM will not use any of their patents against you in case they wanted to do, but why should they? And then what I saw as a sort of, I mean, this is a very emerging technology, so there's the risk here and the uncertainty around the copyright is really around the license versions. Like the Bitcoin Core is under one license, that's called the MIT license, which is also very open. But then there are Ethereum implementations that's using what they call the GNU license, which is a little bit different. And then you have, as you see, all these different client versions written in different languages. All of these the code will be different. Even if the idea is the same, the code will be different. So there will be different copyright, different licenses, and you have to check it every time you're trying to reuse anything of this. So this is the kind of area where I see there is a risk, and then things are coming together. So this will become clearer during, I guess, the next few years. We'll understand much more of what type of licenses are really out there and how they play together. So I said trademarks, and trademarks are for words or logos, and the purpose of a trademark is not really to give a right to a business to use that name, but the purpose is to protect consumers or the users with a warranty of the quality and origin. And this is why it's important that whether people understand something about blockchain or not. And you will know many words that has originally been trademarks that are no longer trademarks. For instance, the Norwegian case of potetgull, which you may know, or words like elevator, escalator. Heroin used to be a trademark of Bayer. It's no longer. And this could also very well happen with, the blockchain now is perceived as a technology name. But still, if you look up and see how many trademark applications are there for blockchain type of trademarks, you can't really see them on the screen here, can you? I can see them here. But you see there is a blockchain down there. And this is just a snapshot. Most of these are just applications. A few of them are registered in different countries, like in Britain, for example. So blockchain will or will not be a registered trademark, and there's going to be some dispute around that. So the only thing you can learn from that is if you're going to start up a new company, don't call it something with blockchain in, find a better name. Now, Ethereum is a registered trademark. And so is also, or Hyperledger is about to be registered. So this means that if you want to use Ethereum as part of your project or saying that you're using Ethereum or something, you will probably have to follow their rules, and there will have to be some sort of quality guarantee that you are actually using Ethereum. And what you see here is, if you go into the Ethereum website, you will see that there's you can get a right under Creative Commons license, but that is a right to the artwork under copyright. It's not a right to the trademark itself. So there's a slight difference here, which is interesting for lawyers, but it's also interesting for you because you can then freely use the Ethereum logo as you wish to, as long as you say where it comes from. Patents in just 1 minute. This will be very brief. Patents are, I mean, it's not good or bad. I'm not particularly pro patents. I'm not particularly against patents. It's like a fact of life. And patent claims are very hard to understand. How many of you have tried to read a patent? Some of you. And it's difficult. And a patent applies for the idea. So if there is an idea here, like the one Martin had of saving the world by using Ethereum, he perhaps could have got a patent, but probably he wouldn't. The patent rights are national, and that's important because US patents don't apply in Norway. So it means that if something, for some reason, were patented in the US, you have to check whether it actually applies in Europe or Norway. Another very important thing, all patent applications are public after 18 months. So, and that has some impact, I'll show you. But they're all public. And they have to be all new, so you can't have any publication prior to applying for a patent. And just to show you what's sort of happening, who are the movers on patenting in this sector, you will see that the lower line, those are technology companies, and the line that goes up, that's banking and financial service companies. So it's actually the banks and the financial service companies that are applying for patents within the financial sector now. This is from the US, and it seems that they are going down, but the curves are going up because, as I said, there is an 18-month secrecy on patent applications, so you won't, these curves will always go down as you move towards present time. Now, my point was just that prior art, whatever was published, that gives what we call freedom to operate. So the basic blockchain was published in 2008. So any patents that concern the basic blockchain mechanism would be public by now, and we would all know about it. And the blockchain as a general database, the blockchain 2.0, that was at least published in December 2013. And you see some references here from a paper by Vitalik Buterin. I haven't been able to verify that from, he says November. I haven't found it earlier than December. And these things only matter if you really go into details on patent applications. But you will find also later on, and very interesting, public brainstorm in March 2014, where people are throwing out ideas on how this technology could be used, and area are mentioned for where it could be used, like for transactions, for smart grid, for you name it. And that means it creates freedom to operate, so nobody can actually, all patent applications that are only for using blockchain in that area would have had to be filed before that date, and probably they're not. And since we are now more than 18 months into the future, you can more or less assume freedom to operate, and that will be no patents. Yes? This one, no. No, and these were not for blockchain patents per se. These were just showing you who are patenting in the financing sector. So I'm just now giving you 2 examples, and that's it. This is a sort of famous patent application from JP Morgan on a Bitcoin alternative. And if you read newsflash on the internet and so on, you will see that it's said that it's rejected, that it has been stopped, but it has not really been stopped, because what they are discussing is not whether this was new or inventive, but they're discussing whether it's allowed to have a patent application on such a business method. So you're sort of into the discussion, can you patent software or not, and not whether this is novel. So probably, and this is like an alternative implementation of Bitcoin, and there are others like this out there. So you will see patents that are alternative implementations of the technology. Then the latest news was Bank of America loads up blockchain patents. So it was Bank of America say they have filed 20 patent applications and so on and so on. And that's a bit the same method as you will have seen Apple, for instance, would have done. They file patents on patents, trying to cover a wide area of technology and creating uncertainty, because lots of these patents will never get granted. But some of them will probably be, and if they are on special implementation details that are not obvious, they could be granted. But then there will be other alternatives for implementation. So if I'm going to give you some sort of advice around that, that is, if you're implementing something on the blockchain and you're thinking about the risk and you're worrying about freedom to operate and could others have patented and so on, it's all about making your software implementation so flexible that you can have a core and you can easily change the bits that are addressing the core, so that you can have some proprietary things and you can have some open source things and you can have a bit control and easily change out code that could be a problem in the case somebody got a patent. But I wouldn't worry too much. So I think that's more or less what I had to say. Am I on time?